Well, good afternoon. It's been a while since I've been with you. And honestly, I've just felt like I haven't had much to say, but I've been praying about it and I wanted to share something with you. And today is kind of a personal message. And the only reason I'm sharing it is because there's got to be somebody else out there that has perhaps been going through the same thing or has in the past. And today I'm talking about when you are feeling sad, when you are feeling not hopeless, just blah. And I think I've been kind of blah the last couple of weeks, and I couldn't really put my finger on it at all. And I've done a few things that have just not been characteristic of my personality, and I have found myself struggling. So I wanted to start with something that I've thought of over the years. As we wait for the Lord to come, it's hard to wait. And I've addressed that in other videos. And I remember years ago thinking I would hate to know that I had some incurable disease or something and been given a timeline where you have 6 months to live or you have 3 months to live. And I used to think to myself, how do those people carry on knowing their time is so short? And then I came face to face with the realization that the Lord is calling us to just occupy until He comes. And I have found myself over the years feeling kind of the same way, where I'm muddling through and I'm going through the motions, but I'm really struggling with the teeter-totter of life of having one foot in this world and one foot in the knowledge of the coming of the Lord. And I remarked to someone the other day that I don't think that any one thing has affected my decision making process more than the possibility of the rapture of the church and the rapture of the bride and the rapture of me going home. I've never lived with a lot of fear as to, oh no, what if I die? Because I'm just like, whatever, I am until I'm not. But this whole feeling of knowing that at any moment everything could change and poof, I'd be gone, like Elijah or whatever, he was and then he wasn't. And that has been very unsettling for me. And as we get nearer and nearer to the end, closer and closer to the day when he is coming, I find that it's getting harder and harder to have that one foot planted here, because my thought process is always, what if? What if I'm out walking the dog, and he comes and poof, I'm gone and my dog's running around like crazy looking for me? Or what if this happens, or I'm here or I'm there? And I sometimes can drive myself nuts with this stuff. And I don't hear it talked about a lot on channels. I don't hear people saying, I'm having some serious issues here with how this is going to take place and what's going to happen. And so I just kind of start to spiral down into, maybe there's something wrong with me that I'm giving this so much thought. I feel like I'm pretty acquainted with scripture and I continue to try and press on. But actually, I'm going to be totally honest here. The past couple of weeks, I've really struggled to even get into the word. And I know that that's wrong. But I also knew the season we were coming into. I know that the fall season and the spring season are two what they call very high watch times. I'm watching what's going on in Iran and Israel and the Middle East. And it says we're to watch, but I don't know how much to watch, because every time I watch the news, I can't figure it out. I hear people come on and say, well, Ezekiel 38 and 39 is right around the corner. And if you watch this, and, Damascus is going to be wiped out. And, Jeremiah 49 and Elam is going to be, the bow is going to be broken. And I'm just like, I'm trying to figure it out, but the more I watch, the more anxious I become because it doesn't fit in my own preconceived timeline of what's supposed to happen. And I hear, well, this war can't really mean anything because there has to be a time of peace before this happens. And it's hard to watch. And so as we entered the spring feasts and the Feast of Unleavened Bread and, Ishtar and all of that happening again, I sit here and I think, I'm tired. I'm tired of thinking about it. I'm tired of making decisions about it. I'm tired of trying to be okay when sometimes I'm not. And the last couple of weeks, I have not been okay. I have found myself doing things that are not healthy for me. I have found myself looking at my past. I'm 73 years old and I have been married and I have been divorced and I am a widow and I have had my children walk away from me and I have made mistakes and I have done some really good things. But it's kind of like all this stuff flashes before my eyes and I find myself in a place where I'm regretting things. In 2018, I got my retirement from my bank job. And my daughter was living with me at the time and her three kids, and we didn't have a lot of money. And I took the money, and I remember buying a motorhome. And I remember I was going to pay him the money on a Friday and pick it up on Sunday. And I kept thinking to myself, I don't even know if I'll ever see this motorhome because we're probably going to get raptured before that, and I'll never even see it. That was 11 years ago or whatever, I don't know, 8 years ago, whatever it comes out to be. And that motorhome has come and gone. And I sat there and thinking about that over the past couple of weeks, and I thought, had I known I was going to be here now, I wouldn't have bought the stupid motorhome. And it's not like I was going, I'm just going to spend like I have it. I wanted to give my family some really quality times of camping together and being a family together and maybe my bug out vehicle. I had it all figured out what I was going to do. But I have regretted that over the last year because I have really struggled financially. And I thought, what a dingbat I was. If I hadn't bought the motorhome, I'd have an additional $30,000 in the bank. So there's things like that have taken place where it's regrets. And I find myself thinking, well, if I had left my situation with my daughter earlier and not spent every cent I had trying to help her, I'd be in a better position. So it's regrets. So then I kind of start spiraling down to, Satan gets right in there and says, Cindy, you're just an idiot. You've just done some stupid things. And then I have to fight those things. And as the more I find myself looking back at these supposed mistakes, I try to get myself out of that. And I try to think about it and think, I did the best I could. I wasn't going crazy. I was trying to do the best I could with what I had at the time. And I need to let it go because regrets cannot be changed. The past cannot be changed. And I was praying at the time. I was. And I don't feel that it was something that was out of craziness. But because it wasn't a total success, I equated it with I had done something wrong. And I think that's the way we view things. When we make a decision and it all turns out wonderfully, then we think, wow, God must have been in that one. And I feel good about that. And I'm just going to keep on going. But say you buy a car and you pray about the car. And then a week later, the car falls apart. You think, well, I missed his will on that. And I must be an idiot. And you start to beat yourself up. And we have a tendency to look at every decision we've made. And if it's successful, he's in it. And if it's not successful, we must have done something wrong. And my reality, my mind knows that that's not truth because you can look into the word and you can see over and over and over with Abraham, with Joseph, with David, where they made mistakes. Some of them were out of sin, and some of them were just kind of like that just didn't go too well. Abraham sold off his sister twice, or his wife twice, as his sister. And I'm sure he had to look back on that and think, well, what? I was a dingbat. But the point that I'm trying to make here is we're all going to have those things where we look back and it's going to be, I could have done that differently. And I think the closer that we get to the end, the more easily it is for us to look at those things and look at our lives as a whole and think, I could have done that differently. Maybe I could have done that. I could have done that. But the problem is when we grab onto those things and we start to look at those things, we start to do this self-talk and we start to just kind of put ourselves down. And that's where Satan just moves in. And he starts to make us feel like we're just not even worthy. And I found myself praying, please count me worthy. And I began to doubt everything. Maybe I'm not in the word enough. Maybe I'm not praying enough. Maybe I'm not a member of this or I'm doing that. And I'm not worthy. And he's going to come and I'm going to be here. And it's just going to be a hot mess. And I could feel myself spiraling down, and I didn't know how to grab onto anything to hang on to it because I was so frustrated with where I was at and the fact that I'm still here. And then I would get back into reality again. And I think, Cindy, what's the problem? You're healthy. I am. For 73 years old, I'm a healthy person. I get out every day. I walk my dog. I'm breathing well. All systems are working as well as can be expected. And I'm in good health. I'm provided for. I don't have a lot, but I have enough to sustain me. And every once in a while, the Lord blesses me with a little bit extra so that I can do something fun. The problem is that my fun is easily taken away from me, or my joy is taken away because I'm so concerned about things going on. When self-doubt starts to come in, you start to lose your joy. And that's what's happened to me over the past couple of weeks. I've just lost my joy, and I've isolated myself, and I have tried my hardest not to be in that position, but it has taken place. And so I feel like I'm starting to come out of it now. So as I start to come out of it, I just wanted to share some things. And the first thing I wanted to share is what I already did. I think it happens to everybody. I think we get to a point where we're just tired and we're weary, and this journey is hard. And what's going on in the world is hard. And I don't see much truth at all. I don't. And the more I doom scroll, the worse it gets. So I have to force myself to not look at what's going on. But on the other hand, I want to know what's going on. I have to realize that not every day is going to be a trip on a roller coaster. I remember that with my second husband, with Ken. And I was just feeling down one day. And, he said, why? And I said, I don't know. I just feel kind of discouraged. And he said, Cindy, you seem to always be looking for the mountaintop. You want to be happy and joyful and gleeful. And that's your sign that everything's okay. But that's not sustainable. And he says, we're not supposed to live up here all the time. We live here. We live at a balance. And he said, you need to learn to shoot for balance in your life. And he says, and then you have to realize that once in a while you're going to have a dip. And that doesn't mean that something is wrong. It doesn't mean that you failed. It just means it's a dip. Hang on, get through the dip and get back up again. And I thought that was real good advice. And I have to keep reminding myself of that now. Not every day is going to be something where I'm just like, wow, I'm on fire today. No, most days I'm just going to putz along. Part of this, I know, is learning how to be retired. I have always lived my life basically Mach 10 with my hair on fire. I've moved 42 times. I've raised 3 kids. I've helped raise grandkids. I've had 6 different careers, everything from a banker and a financial planner to a pastor and everything in between. And I've been a teacher and I've been a nursery person with plants. And there's been a lot of excitement in my life. And all of a sudden, I find myself at the back end of my life and I don't have a lot going on. And I'm having to learn how to navigate that quietness, that stillness. It doesn't make it wrong, it just means it's different. And sometimes I still look for the thrills, and I can't do that. I need to stay balanced. So I have to go back to what Ken said and just kind of muddle along. And so I want to look at a couple verses today, and these are very familiar verses, and these are verses that honestly I have struggled with my whole life. And so we're going to go to the book of Philippians 4. And I'm going to read Philippians 4, 11 through 13. Not that I speak from any personal need, for I've learned to be content and self-sufficient through Christ, satisfied to the point where I'm not disturbed or uneasy regarding my circumstances. I know how to get along and live humbly in difficult times, and I know how to enjoy abundance and live in prosperity. I have learned the secret of facing life, whether well fed or going hungry, whether having an abundance or having need. I can do all things which he has called me to do through him who strengthens and empowers me to fulfill his purpose. I am self-sufficient in Christ's sufficiency. I am ready for anything and equal to anything through him who infuses me with inner strength and confident peace. And honestly, I'm stuck back on the place that says the secret of being content. Because to me, it's still a secret a lot of the times. I don't know how to grasp that contentment. I can feel pockets of joy and pools of happiness. And honestly, I do better when I have less. When I'm going through a crisis, and I've had a lot of them in my life, I know with all my heart, I'm like that little cat on the limb and I'm hanging on for dear life. And it's me and the Lord, and nothing's going to shake me and nothing's going to move me. And I do okay. Excuse me. But when I have times where I'm just kind of muddling along, I kind of lose focus. And I'm kind of like, what now? What am I supposed to do now? And so I'm content when I don't have as much. And I've learned how to not worry when I don't have as much. And when I have a lot, when I have abundance, I'm real happy in that. I mean, who isn't? You get some extra bucks and you're like, wee, I'm going to Home Depot and buy plants. But it's the everyday. It's when I wake up in the morning and I don't have a lot on my agenda and I'm kind of like, okay, now what? And I find myself, if I'm not careful, with getting into this humdrum, dull thought process where I'm just like, oh, hum, mediocre. And I found myself when I was talking to my sister, I had her and her family over for Easter, which was a big deal for me to have them over here because I was worried. I'm like, are they going to be bored? Is everything going to be okay? I don't doubt my cooking because that's one thing I've got going for me. But I thought, can I carry on enough conversation? Am I interesting enough? Because basically I talked to my dog. And so I had her over and, we chit-chatted, and my brother-in-law and I were in the same graduating class in high school, and she married her, high school, junior high sweetheart, really. And so we just kind of reminisced on some things that we had missed when I had moved other places. And she called me the next day and just said how wonderful a time they had, that everything was nice and the house was beautiful and the food was tasty. And I was just so social. And she says, I realized when I talked to you that it must have been hard for you because you kept asking me if things were okay. And that's where I'm at. I'm not okay in the normal. I'm so used to chaos. I'm so used to pain. I'm so used to hurt. Then when it comes to things being normal and quiet, I don't know what the secret is. And I still struggle. So I made some ham pea soup, whatever you call it. And I made some ham salad. And I made enough for me, and then I made enough for her. And I said, I'd like to bring you this because, I had leftovers and she loves it because she doesn't like to cook. And she says, well, why don't I meet you halfway? And I said, no, that's okay. I'll come to your house. I have no life. And I had to stop and catch myself because I can't tell you how many times I've said that to her. She seems to have a very busy lifestyle, and I'm just like, no, that's okay. I don't have any life. And I have downplayed the very place of quietness and peace that the Lord has given me. It's as if I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop so that I can then jump into action and do what I have to do to survive, when really he's not telling me to have a crisis. He's telling me to be still and to learn the secret of contentment. So as I struggled with this over the past couple of weeks, I kind of felt myself being discouraged because I couldn't put my finger on what was going on. And last night, or yesterday, I guess it started, and I just thought, I gotta get back to, the thought process, because my mind was saying, I'm okay if he comes to get me, and I will be okay if he doesn't. Because for me, that was my struggle. How will I keep going if he doesn't pick me up this spring? If I'm still here, am I going to be okay? So I wasn't getting into the word like I should, and then I would get more guilt out of that, and I was spiraling. And I finally sat in the chair and I cried out and I said, I can't do this. Every time I talk, I lose my voice. Maybe that's a sign. And I just started weeping. And I said, Lord, I don't want to live this way. I don't want to live where I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't want to live in a place where I'm discouraged, where I'm waiting for something bad to happen, and where I'm not content. I need that secret. And I found myself just crying. I don't want to live with regrets. I don't want to look back on my life and think of all the things that I think I've screwed up because Satan's using it to defeat me. I want to be healed. I want to be whole. I want to be in a place with you, Yeshua, where I know without a doubt that you've got me, and I can stop beating myself up, because honestly, I haven't made any big bloopers in a long time. But yet I'm treating myself as if I have, as if I've missed the mark. And he's trying to tell me, my daughter, I've got you, and I will see you home. So I'm giving this out to you today because if you're in that place where you're just discouraged, there's a few things that I'm doing to kind of bring myself back. The first thing is I picked up the Bible again and I started reading. And I just thought, I remember seeing old grannies in rocking chairs, and all they do is read the word while the world goes on around them. And I thought, I can do that. So I did. I started reading and I started studying again, and it felt good. It had been probably almost a week since I had even picked up the Bible, and I was giving myself such grief because I hadn't done that. So I got into the word, and nothing hit me. Was like, because I was like, well, maybe I should share something. And he's like, no, just be you. So I did that. And then I started listening to music, and I found a channel, and I don't know if you guys know it. I didn't know it. It's called Fearless Soul, I think it is. And I Googled it on YouTube, and I started listening, and all the songs were about healing and about our identity in Christ and about how he sees us. And I sat there listening to those songs over and over again, and I realized he was washing me. He was cleansing me. He was helping me to get into that deeper place with him, to find that secret of being content. And then I stopped feeling sorry for myself because I didn't think I was. But, when you get comments out of your mouth that say, well, I got no life, that doesn't sound like a real good thing to tell yourself. And I realized that I need to make the most with what I have. I should be very thankful that I don't have to teach anymore and I don't have to tutor anymore and I don't have to do those things. And my schedule's my own. And I have to develop things in my life that bring me joy. One of those things is I planted a flower garden outside my window here, and it's beautiful. And I've got pansies in there and a couple green plants and some geraniums. And a little by little, as I've had a couple extra bucks, I get a couple more plants and put them in. And now that they're starting to bloom, they look beautiful. And the trees here in the springtime are beautiful. And I took a camera and I went to downtown Ashland, which is nothing, it's about 2 blocks long, and I took pictures. There's a huge statue downtown of Secretariat. There's a small campus down there for a college. There's murals on buildings of a train. We have a small train station in my town, and I took pictures of that. Then I ran all over town taking pictures of the plants and the trees that are in bloom. And they're not for anybody except for me. I put them on my Facebook page, but it was things that were just feeding me in the present and helping me feel content. About a year ago, I started watercolor painting, and I didn't know anything, but I just knew it just sounded like fun. And I used to watercolor paint every single day. I would make some kind of little thing, and I made cards and sent them and things like that. And today I picked them up and I painted this. Can you see that? Like that. And then I painted this one. And it's really no work of art, but they were things that I drew, things that made me happy, and things that I could paint. And I found an hour and a half was gone of my day, and I was content, and I wasn't thinking about doom scrolling or what I'd done wrong. I was just enjoying that moment. And then my dog came up and said, it's time to go for a walk. And instead of just doing the walk, because it's 25 minutes walking from one way to the other, I thought I'm going to enjoy it. And tomorrow I'm going to take my camera because all the trees are in bloom. And so I'm purposely going to look for things that are going to fill me again with that joy. And I'm going to be looking for those times of joy because that's what God has for me. He doesn't want me to sit here all tangled up in regrets from the past and worries about the future and what I've done wrong or perceived what I've done wrong. He wants me to enjoy. He wants me to discover that secret. And it's a secret that doesn't come easily. It's a secret for a reason. And I looked up secret today, and it says a secret is an action carried out beyond the reach of ordinary sight or hearing, quietly, covertly, in secret. And so instead of looking for those monumental mountaintop experiences or just sitting here waiting with bated breath for him to come and take me home, or for beating myself up for looking, I'm just going to try to relax and enjoy the things that are around me. I think that's the secret. Am I totally there yet? No. It's always in the back of my mind that I could be gone in a heartbeat. But I want to get to the point where it's okay. And just because I'm not thinking about it 24/7, just because I'm not watching Israel and bombs, doesn't mean that I'm not ready. I'm ready because I'm trying to discover the secret of contentment with him. So that's my message today. I have no idea if this touches anyone or not, but it's my journey of trying to find that secret of contentment while I wait. I know how to occupy. I know how to do things. I'm really good at doing things. But I don't think he wants me to be doing a whole lot of occupying. I think he wants me to be resting in him, abiding in him. I read a book years ago, Andrew Murray, Abiding in Him, little paperback, and I've probably read it 6 times. And I'm thinking, I need to go back and read that again. Abiding, being attached to him, being one with him, ahad with him. So if this has ministered to you, or if you have struggled with this, I'd appreciate your comments, just because it gives me something to say, okay, maybe I'm not alone. Meanwhile, we wait and we watch, but we dig in to try to find the secret. Not easily done. Have a great day.